All right, so welcome everyone to our second day of our Hawks Abroad Fair, and we're excited to include this as part of our session. So, please let us know if you have any questions. You can put them in the chat. Of course, welcome. And for us, the Education Abroad Office, we are about helping students explore different programs, prepare and reintegrate them. And we are aware, COVID and whatnot, and we'll address that in just a moment. And for those who haven't met us before, there are 4 professional staff in our office. We have Gina Lapardo, our director, who is currently out for now, and she'll be back next week. And she studied abroad in Italy, and she's originally from Rhode Island. She's also a resident minister in Xavier, so she'll be back on campus when she gets back. Next is Dario.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. I'm a specialist in the office, so I work with our faculty and our faculty-led programs, both short-term and long-term. That's kind of my main responsibilities in the office. When I was a student, I studied abroad in Sydney, Australia. And yeah, those are some things about me. And we share these things with students just so that if they find that they want to connect with us over something other than study abroad, they can, have a way to connect with us. So yeah, thanks for coming. Jen, you're muted still.
All right, I'm Jen. I guess to say we all graduated from SU. So as an undergrad, I didn't study abroad because I did not do my due diligence and plan properly. So I ended up working abroad after I graduated. So I talked to students about living abroad in Asia, in Japan specifically. And then I'm an advisor for the last names M through Z, and I'm Kirsty's counterpart. Not working for me.
And I'm Kirsty. I am, as Jen said, her counterpart. I am a soon-to-be double alum of Seattle U. I did my undergrad studies in political science, international studies, and French, and now I'm doing my grad program in our School of Theology and Ministry. And I studied abroad in Madagascar during my undergrad here at SU, so that photo of me is from Madagascar being ambushed by lemurs. And today for Hawks Around the World Week, today's theme is Africa and the Middle East. So we're presenting on our programs, our portfolio in Africa and the Middle East. So I'm wearing my lemur jumpsuit today to represent my time in Madagascar. And, like Jen said, we advise students on all stages of the process. So in the planning process of identifying programs, talking about credits and finances and all that kind of stuff, preparing them to go, and then that reintegration piece.
Sorry, it's hard to do both. Okay. So one thing we do want to address, and we're very aware of how this is shaping up. We are still monitoring things as it goes as of now because of the university's travel restriction till December. Spring semester is still on the fence, so we're in discussion on whether students can go abroad, and we're monitoring State Department, CDC, and the WHO, but all of our providers since March have been really doing their due diligence, just like Seattle U has, to prepare their centers and their universities as best as they can to welcome students back. So it is an ongoing situation. Awesome. So just as a general overview, kind of how SU mission fits with our work here at SU for international education. So of course it fits well with the empowering leaders for a just and humane world as students go out and are able to explore kind of what their place is in the world. And this is kind of how we envision our contribution to the university under like the global engagement. So we're all kind of interconnected, and then that allows students to really engage in their academic work inside and outside of Seattle University. And of course, some obvious outcomes for the students. They have academic growth. They build the concept of cultural humility rather than just, you know, the me attitude that they have. So, and also language proficiency, that stronger perspective of self and place, and whatnot. Of course, you can read all that. But for the institution itself, we see our freshman student coming to our welcome events. That's kind of their number one thing, is they want to study abroad. And research has shown that it really helps with retention. We've had students who've talked to us and said, you know, I thought I was going to leave SU, but then I decided to go study abroad. And they really built those relationships abroad on those short-term or long-term programs. And they were like, this is why I'm returning back. So we've really found that in our students as well. It's a big retention tool. So hopefully everyone sees value in an international education, and the world opens up again and we're able to send students abroad.
So we just wanted to do a quick kind of just overview about education abroad. Obviously, for some people, this is a big refresher, but in terms of kind of just how the basics of education abroad work, in case this was something that you were able to do as part of your past, or if it's something you currently engage in, just a little bit about the basics. So one of the first things that we talk about for education abroad is that we really think that it's for everyone. And a lot of this is kind of dispelling the myths that either students or even those of us who were not familiar with education abroad, sometimes students come in with the preconceived notion that it's just not an option for them based on so many different factors. But while it's certainly true that some students have more challenges than others, there's obstacles that every student has to face when deciding or being able to plan a study abroad program. And so we try and just kind of have an attitude that it is for everyone, and that there's some sort of option for every student to have some sort of international experience or global experience during their time at SU. A lot of it is just really planning early on, having them connect with us early on in their academic career, as well as then kind of our office connecting them with other people on campus, like their academic advisors, their departments, student financial services, all of these different areas. And so we really try and be a resource, not just for education abroad, but then also kind of all the things that go into the planning as well. And so then the next part, one thing that is really important when planning a study abroad experience is just when it actually happens. So we allow students, as a general rule, to go abroad as early as the summer after their freshman year. So their first year on campus, just because we think it's important for them to be on campus for their first full year to really get a lay of the land. But then what that means is that there's terms to go abroad pretty much every term after that. So obviously the main ones that we think of are during the academic year, like fall quarter, winter quarter, spring quarter, or fall semester, spring semester, which is how it works most places abroad. But then there's also things that happen over every single break. So over winter break, there's short-term programs, both credit and non-credit, as well as spring break. And then summer is actually about half of our students end up going abroad over the summer, just because it ends up working better with their schedules, or because they need to be on campus for whatever reason. So about half of our students end up going abroad over the summer, either on short-term or longer programs as well. Credits. So this is a huge piece of it. Obviously, study is kind of the first thing we hope students are thinking about when thinking about study abroad. But another myth is that students not sure if they're actually be taking credits that count towards what they need. So as we all know, they can take general electives, they can do, if they have a language requirement, like for the College of Arts and Sciences, that 1 year of a language, they can do that abroad. And then as long as they get it approved, their major and minor electives and requirements can be taken abroad and then transferred back to SU. And then a big piece that a lot of students use is the U-Core. So as maybe we all know, the U-Core, the third module, is Engaging the World. And that was created with with education abroad in mind, so that students can more easily find courses abroad to then transfer them back to fulfill these courses. So they could essentially almost take a full course load abroad, just taking U-Core courses. So that's helpful for students who maybe have more challenging majors, it's more challenging for them to find major courses abroad. They can save some of these U-Core courses. So everyone takes the U-Core 3100 and then the remaining 2 based on what their major is. So great options. Housing. So housing is something that students are very concerned about, and so they might come to you with these questions. Essentially, most programs will have at least a couple options. Homestays are really great for students who really want to be immersed in the culture and want to practice the language. But then also there's apartment style living or student resident style living, similar to what they might be experiencing here. So if students have specific needs, whether that's just personal or if they have different medical or other academic needs that affect their housing, our partners abroad are usually pretty great about helping us find the right accommodations for students. And then finances. So this is a huge piece and it's a big access piece. So it's something that we're constantly trying to just share more information about, because a lot of it is just sharing how finances work. And so it's not always true that it's more expensive than being on campus. Sometimes if students find the right program, then it can actually be maybe more affordable, or at least very comparable to what they'd be spending here. Seattle is a pretty expensive city, so it could be more affordable sometimes for them to not be here for a term. And so with that, we talk with them about how what scholarships are available and grants for study abroad. Just like there's tons of scholarships for college in general, there's so many for education abroad. And so there's some main ones that we kind of can more specifically advise them on, but then there's also so many databases and research engines that we are becoming more familiar with, but then students often find them on their own. And so then we also talk to them about how their SU financial aid works on all of our programs. The great thing about most of our programs is that they're able to use their financial aid. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. So yeah, lots of different ways that we can try and be a resource to them around finances, but then also connecting them with who's on campus and off campus as well.
So in terms of programs, we have a lot of different program types, and like Dario said, this might be a refresher for a lot of you who are familiar with our different program types. So we're gonna talk about a little bit about what those are, but I also wanna give some updates. Jen, if you wanna just click through all the different dots of just some, to see all the different locations that we have for programs, and give some updates on some programs that have changed and been added this year. Because of the context of COVID, a lot of our study abroad partners internationally are struggling to keep going because of program cancellations. Like, we're a tuition dependent university and they are entirely dependent on study abroad, and when no one's studying abroad, that's a challenge. And so because of that, a number of our, not as much actually as anticipated, but a few programs just fully canceled, kind of forever. So we lost a couple programs in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. And so because of that, we have also now gained some programs. So some ones that I want to highlight here is we gained a SU sponsored program in Bhutan with a company called API, who we've worked with previously. And that program is really great for, I mean, it's great for a lot of different majors. The university that they study with in Bhutan is an English-speaking university, and they have coursework in computer science, environmental studies, environmental science, a lot of ecological classes. They also have business courses, and it's pretty unique to be able to go to Bhutan. Just visa requirements, like even going there as a tourist is really challenging and very expensive. So being able to go there as a student is kind of a unique thing that students maybe actually wouldn't be able to do later on as a tourist. Another one that's new that I'll highlight is a program in Portugal. We've never had a program in Portugal before. This one similarly is at an English speaking university, and there's lots of courses for business. A few other disciplines, but specifically business is what I think the most of their students who do that program are within those disciplines. Portugal is also one of the, in terms of how it falls within our program fee structure, it's one of the most affordable programs in Europe. And Portugal in and of itself is one of the cheapest countries in Europe. So that can be a really good selling point for our students. So in terms of the actual program types that are listed here, all those different colors relate to the different types of programs. So we'll just go, Jen, if you want to go forward, talk about what those different colors mean. So the first type of program that we offer are faculty-led short-term programs, and many of you are familiar with these within your colleges. These are programs that are designed by SU faculty, and generally they happen over winter break, spring break, or summer. So normally, and this is still happening, professors are putting together their proposals now during fall quarter for programs that will be happening this upcoming summer and into the late summer, kind of beginning of fall quarter. And for these programs, it's in addition to the coursework that they're normally taking at SU, but they take that class during the quarter prior to going abroad. So if they're doing a summer program, they'd enroll in that class normally during spring quarter, meet with the professor once a week, maybe leading up to that, just kind of in preparation, and then they spend anywhere from a week to a month abroad during those breaks. So in terms of tuition, that tuition is included in the quarterly tuition that they're paying. So if, again, with the example of a summer program, the tuition for that class is included in their spring quarter tuition. So if students are, they have a 3.5 GPA above, I believe they can overload and take up to 20 credits. So they could take one of these 5 credit classes in addition to the normal kind of average 15 credit course load for a quarter and not have to pay additionally for the tuition. Some students decide to do it as part of their normal 15, and then they have a lighter load during that quarter, since the bulk of the work for the program happens over the break when they're actually abroad. And so scholarships, SU scholarships and federal and state aid go towards that tuition piece that they're paying. Additionally, these programs have a program fee, and that ranges greatly based on where they're going, how long they're there, all those pieces. And so that normally is out of pocket. There are a few scholarships, SU scholarships, that can help additionally pay for that. Sometimes students can also look at federal and state aid as a taking out additional loans to pay for that. And then occasionally individual colleges will have scholarships that students can apply for programs within their college. Because students are taking a class at SU, they're enrolling in a course here, the grades work the same way as they would if a student was taking any other class at SU. Letter grades and the courses factor into their SU GPA. The next type are our faculty long-term programs. So these are our Latin American Studies program in Puebla, Mexico with the Spanish department, and our French and France and Africa program through the French department, where they study in Paris for 1 quarter, and then they have the option of studying in Senegal and Morocco for spring quarter. So both of those are winter and spring quarter programs. So these are hosted, they're by SU faculty who go with the students internationally to take classes at local universities. So in Puebla, Mexico as one of our Jesuit partners. And then in Paris, students are taking classes at the Sorbonne. There's different universities that they partner with in Senegal and Morocco as well. And students are paying tuition normally to SU for either winter or spring quarters, depending on whether they're abroad for both quarters or just one. And then a program fee, again, dependent on whether they're there for just 1 quarter or 2, that program fee will vary. And for the most part, my understanding is those program fees tend to be similar in terms of out-of-pocket expenses for room and board that students would have here on campus. Certainly in Mexico, the cost of living is a lot less expensive. And so oftentimes it ends up being less expensive than being here at SU. And then same, because they're paying SU tuition, scholarships and grants are all applicable, federal and state aid, and the same with the letter grades. They are, even though they're taking classes oftentimes at another university, they're actually receiving credit through SU. It is an SU course, so the grades count for their SU GPA. And then SU-sponsored programs, this is our largest category of programs. These are not designed by Seattle U, led by Seattle U. They are designed and led by our international partners. So either program provider, those are companies essentially that design and run study abroad programs, or some universities that run them themselves. And this is, as in contrast to our exchange programs, which we'll talk about next, it's not reciprocal. So students are not coming to Seattle U in exchange for sponsored programs. These are just, our students are doing a program that is run specifically for study abroad students. They happen during the academic year. Most programs are on the semester system, so their students are gone either fall semester or spring semester. Students pay SU tuition if they decide to do an SU sponsored program. So, and then a program fee, which is on a scale of $0 to $12,000, depending on how expensive the program is. And then because it's sponsored, students, and they're paying SU tuition, they're able to use their SU scholarships and grants towards sponsored programs. So they pay Seattle U, get to use all of their scholarships, and then SU pays this company or university directly. And then federal and state aid is always applicable. And then the difference in credits from the faculty-led programs is that the credits that are coming in will be transfer credit. And so the GPA or the grades that they receive on programs, on SU-sponsored programs, will not transfer to their SU GPA. And we have programs, about 100 of these sponsored programs all over the world, very different range of costs. So there are programs that end up being less expensive than being at SU because of that $0. Some of them have a $0 program fee, which includes their housing. So especially if they're in a country where the cost of living is less, those can actually be really cost saving for students too. And then our SU exchange programs, these are direct relationships that we have with a specific international university, a partner university. Most of them are Jesuit or Catholic universities on our list. And so what happens is students from that university come to Seattle U, and we send students there in exchange. So they just swap for a semester or an academic year. They do happen during the academic year, again, either fall semester or spring semester. And students are paying their home tuition. So SU students pay Seattle U tuition, and then our exchange partner, like our students coming from Tokyo, Japan, they pay Sophia University's tuition, and then they just swap. And then it's the student's responsibility to pay housing directly to the international partner. And so that's where the fees vary slightly between the universities, but generally the exchange programs in terms of room and board end up being comparable to SU expenses for room and board. SU scholarships and grants, federal and state aid are applicable, and then the credit works similarly to sponsored programs where it's just coming in as transfer credit, so not factoring into their SU GPA. We have 9 exchange partners. Officially, 8 of them really work for our students, so we don't really advise on 1 or 2 of them so much, but they're all over the world. And then non-SU programs, this is anything else that's out there. At SU, students are able to study abroad at any university, any program that will accept them. So if they don't want to do anything that's on our list, and that happens a lot, that's totally fine. We still advise on non-SU programs. So that could be directly with a company, again, that provides programs, or a university directly. These happen during the academic year and summer. So mostly if students are wanting to study abroad in the summer, they're doing non-SU programs or faculty-led, the short-term faculty-led programs, of course. And for this category, students do not pay SU tuition. They pay a $1,000 transfer credit fee to transfer the credits back to SU, and that covers just a lot of administrative pieces and advising and all of that. And then they pay the university or program company directly for any of the costs involved in the program. Because they're not paying SU tuition, they do not get to use their SU scholarships and grants. So for students who don't actually receive a lot of SU scholarships and grants, this sometimes is a more cost-effective option for them. So that's something that we definitely advise students about. And then they can always use their federal and state aid on any program. Normally, federal and state aid is not generally applicable to summer. Students would have to reapply for federal and state aid for the summer. So that's where talking with our student financial services office is really important if students are looking for that kind of aid. And then transfer credit is the same as the sponsored and exchange program. So courses don't impact their SU GPA. But in terms of what it looks like on their transcript, it really doesn't make a difference whether a student is doing a sponsored exchange or non-SU program. It'll look the same on their transcript. The courses can transfer just the same. So it's not, I think a lot of students have an idea that because it's not sponsored or exchange, it's like a bad option or it's harder. It's not necessarily the case at all. Of course, we would love for students to look at our sponsored exchange programs first, but we're happy to advise on these. So I mentioned that most programs happen on the semester system. There are a few programs that happen on the quarter system. Actually, I forgot to mention this in the updated programs. We did just add 2 new quarter programs, one on our sponsored list. One of them is in Amsterdam, specifically for social sciences, like psychology, social sciences, and sociology, I think are the kind of top categories. And then, so that one happens during spring quarter. And then we also have now added a program in Berlin, Germany for business, specifically innovation, entrepreneurship. And that one is a winter quarter program. Both of those are very affordable programs for students. But other than those, pretty much all of our other programs are on the semester system. And so since we're on the quarter system, at least for now, it works a little bit differently for our students. So our fall quarter generally aligns with fall semester programs. So students are gone, just missing our fall quarter, but they're gone for a little bit longer period of time and they're getting more credit than if they were here for just fall quarter. So average credit for fall quarter is 15 credits. Average credit for fall semester is 22.5 credits. So that ends up being a boost in credits, especially if students are double majoring or minoring or just transfer student tight on credits. It can be a great way to add credits without having to pay a lot more, since they're still just paying, if they're doing a sponsored or exchange program, they still just pay 1/4 of SU tuition for that semester. And they're able to use 1/4 of their SU aid and 1/4 of federal and state aid. For spring semester, that aligns with our winter and spring quarters. They're gone for a little bit shorter period of time, normally leaving like end of January, beginning of February, and coming back in May before our students finish spring quarter. And they get a little bit less credit than they would if they were here for both winter and spring quarters. So on average, a student takes 30 credits over winter and spring quarters. And then for a semester, spring semester, they'd be bringing back average of 22.5. So average deficit of 7.5 credits. So if students are coming in with credits from high school or Running Start or whatever it is, and they're able to swing a spring semester, it can be a cost-saving option, since they just pay 1/4 of tuition, whereas if they were here for 2 quarters, they'd be, for winter and spring, they'd be paying for 2. So especially programs that have higher program fees, like our programs that have $10,000, $12,000 program fees, if they're able to knock off 1/4 of tuition, that can make it more affordable to do that. Because they're only paying 1/4 of SU tuition, they just get 1/4 of their SU aid, but they always will get the amount of federal and state aid that you would be receiving over that period of time. So they'd still get 2/4 of their federal and state aid for spring semester. And that is kind of that breakdown of spring semester, fall semester is the same for non-SU programs. The only difference is in terms of scholarship. So for fall quarter, if they're not receiving any SU scholarship, just that 1/4 of federal and SU scholarship, just the 1/4 of federal and state aid, and spring semester, no SU scholarship, just the 2/4 of federal and state aid. The only difference here for our sponsored exchange is our exchange program in Japan at Sophia University. Their academic calendar is exactly the opposite. So their fall semester aligns with our fall and winter. So the credit and financial advantages are the same, match our normal spring semester, but it happens in fall semester. And then their spring semester aligns with our spring quarter. So most students who do this program end up doing spring quarter since they only, or spring semester since they only miss spring quarter, and they end up getting more credits. So in terms of planning, this is where we are very much aware of the context of COVID preventing students from studying abroad right now and potentially winter and spring. But we're hoping that the world reopens in some capacity next year and the year after that. And it takes a lot of planning to study abroad. So especially our incoming students right now, even though studying abroad right now isn't a possibility, you need to start planning for it now for the future. So the first step in the process is attending one of our information sessions, which we offer in our office every day. They're 30 minutes. Students can sign up for them online through our bookings page. And we go over the different types of programs and credits and finances similar to what we just did now. And then after that, they'll meet with either Jen or myself. The first advising appointment that we do with students is in a group setting. So it's anywhere from 2 to 5 students. And we go over how to find programs that meet their academic, personal, professional goals, what to look for. We go much more in depth about finances, actually looking at budgets, filling out budgets together, those kinds of things. And then after that initial group advising session, we're available to meet with students as many times as they want, one-on-one. And then after students have narrowed down programs, they will apply. February 1st is our application deadline for any sponsored and exchange programs happening during the next academic year. So if students are wanting to study abroad next year at all, they're wanting to apply by February 1st, and that deadline sneaks up on students every year without fail winter quarter. So as much as they can start planning now is great so that they're ahead of the game. One thing for you to know as advisors is we have no idea how many applicants we're going to have this year because there were a whole group of students who had applied for fall and then had their program canceled. So it is possible that we will have more students than usual applying for next year for the students who weren't able to go this year, and then also the normal batch of students applying for a given year. So again, we don't know, just given the context of COVID, that also could mean that very few students apply. But if it ends up being that we have double the applications, it could be competitive depending on how much we're able to, how many students we're able to accept to different students. So just aware that we're really unsure how that's going to play out this year. So starting the application early and putting forth a strong application is very much encouraged by February 1st. And then after that, there are steps that they complete with our office and with the different program they're actually doing. Before they go abroad, we have a pre-departure orientation that all students do about health and safety, as well as kind of ethical forms of cultural engagement. And then students go abroad, which is the fun part for all of them. And then they return, and we have options for them to stay integrated or integrate their experience back to their time at SU and their remaining career and life. We've had some practical workshops like with our career office about how to maximize study abroad on a resume. And then also just kind of more informal social gatherings for students to share their experience with each other. And then, so a new thing this year also that out of the context of COVID and programs being canceled and program providers still wanting to stay afloat, they started offering a lot of their international programs virtually. So courses being taught by faculty internationally. And I think from the summer, pretty much across the board, our partners determined that those weren't really popular. The courses that were taught by SU, or not SU faculty, international faculty, they didn't really get a lot of interest, probably because all of our students are taking classes virtually, and so it couldn't really justify spending that money additionally on doing an international program from home. But what ended up being really successful that now they are planning to actually carry forward into the future are doing virtual internships, virtual international internships specifically. Students still felt like the exposure to different cultural expectations of the workplace was really valuable. It also, from an equity and mobility standpoint, a lot of our program partners shared with us that they anticipated the students participating in these would be students who had already planned to do an international internship, and then it got canceled, but it actually ended up being a totally different pool of students who wouldn't have been able to do an internship internationally prior, like wouldn't have studied abroad. And so we're really excited about that as a possibility to have that international experience for students who may not be able to leave the country for a variety of reasons. So those are things that we are learning more about as we're entering fall quarter, and hopefully can advise students on, but also just for your knowledge, if you're meeting with students and they're thinking about an internship in this virtual context, international ones could be a really good option.
Yeah, and I just want to add that of course, everyone has webinars over the summer, and they've said that, even DACA students have been able to participate in these virtual internships because, that international experience that they've always wanted to gain but weren't able to because they couldn't leave the country. All right, so just a little update on kind of what we've been doing since. So I'm just gonna get out of our presentation mode just for a moment. We have decided to move away from the course approval form and go into an actual a SharePoint that will have all the different courses approved. So this is just our view of it. So for example, oh no, I'm so sorry. So here's our new SharePoint that we've set up, and everyone's able to see this, yes? So this is just the core version of it, but basically it would have the department's information. It would have an Excel sheet of kind of courses that students have, we need approval for, and some just basic contact information. So I'm just gonna show this as an example. And we've already worked with CORE to kind of figure this out. So we would list the student information here. The department chair would kind of tell us what the equivalency would be, and then we would generate a PDF that would be sent to the registrar and the student's academic advisor just for approval, and then for the student record as well. So we're really trying to move away from the form and just kind of populate everything in one place rather than having the student bounce back and forth, especially since we're all virtual. And then so whoever is a department chair will be added on here. Albers has a unique course approval process, so all the Albers advisors have been added on to the Albers list. And here we also have our departmental handouts that Kirsty made, these lovely ones that we give to students who say they have a particular or whatever major they're interested in, or sometimes they're like, oh, I don't know which one I'm doing yet. This could get them a good starting point on sample programs that we offer them. So just something like this so they can kind of see what they're interested in doing abroad. And then of course, as I mentioned, the COVID restriction, we are on it and we will update folks as best as we can. And now I think we'll open it up to you all if you have maybe questions or ways you would like to collaborate as we move forward. We're open to all the new things. So we'll just have a look at the chat. Or if you feel comfortable, you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Hi, this is Colleen.
Hi.
Hi. Do students who applied and were accepted and then unable to go on their trip last year, do they have to reapply?
They do. They do have to reapply. And of course, we have a list of those who did apply this past year. So we'll make a note and try to prioritize them. But again, as Kirsty said, we honestly don't know how many people are going to apply. So yeah. So we'll try our best to accommodate students. But again, we recommend students still talk to their academic advisors because things have shifted for them. Does that mean they're still able to go abroad? Would it be better to do a summer program? We don't know. It's definitely teamwork on that one to kind of figure out if it's possible.
So Jennifer, I have a question. We're going to have a meeting with my department later.
Yeah.
So the course approval form, you say that the chairs are going to be added. So
Yes.
that means that the chair is the one that has to approve the.
For modern languages, it'll be different. I added
Okay.
everyone.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I added everyone.
If you send everything to our chair, she's going to go crazy.
Yeah. So modern languages will have one Excel sheet just so that you all are, because since you guys change department chairs every 2 years, and you guys have to look at the different programs, because like Portuguese would be like, a modern language requirement, but it doesn't fit into it. But everyone can see it.
Okay, yeah, because also you know that not only our chair is the one that approved.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so it will be different for us. Okay, because I can tell them. I will tell them that the paper one is going to change, but we will all be available to do that. Okay. Well,
yes. So if it's let's say it's a Japanese class, we will email the Japanese teacher. If it's a Spanish class, we will email you all to let you know that there's something in the Excel sheet that you need to approve.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's good to know. Thanks.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I had a question, just a little bit more about the course approval process, and I'm kind of also looking at the handout, the workbook as well. And so it seems like it's just a little bit more like direct to the chairs. I guess what is students like? I don't know, maybe a little bit more detail about what the process is for the students and where the academic advisors come in, and how does it look for like what we would need to do, I guess.
Yeah, so students will be emailed a form, Microsoft form, asking what courses are you interested in taking. They'll input all that. They'll have like the links and all that. And then we'll email on behalf of the student to the department chairs to get those approvals. And then once we get all of that, we will merge it into a PDF. We'll email it to you and the student for the academic advisors for approval. And then we'll send it to the registrar. And then the registrar will email the student the final, like, these are your minimum grades that you have to achieve, that kind of thing. Yeah. Sorry, I should have been clearer.
Oh no, it's like, I love this new process. I'm very excited about it. I just, want to be able to, when I talk to students, being able to explain what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It puts a lot less work on the student to actually go around and get the approvals. And the form that Jen created, it's just a digital Microsoft form that then exports all of their requests to an Excel sheet. So it makes it just really streamlined. We're excited about it. Yay, Jen.
Yay. I think this is like maybe something that I'm thinking about, but I'm not really sure what we should do, just because Albers monitors all the course approvals for Albers departments. So we'll add all the arts and sciences academic advisors to the arts and science one, if you wanted to see maybe what students got approved for. But I don't know, we're still debating, I guess. I don't know. We do want transparency, and students are also like, can I get things, what's the answer as soon as possible, that immediate satisfaction kind of thing. Any
I
other
have a
questions?
question about the courses that start in an academic term and then go abroad over the break. Do you keep a list of those so that it's easier for students to find them?
Yeah, so on our website here for students, under Explore Programs, on the left-hand side and on this banner, we have short-term programs. So we update these every year. Dario updates these every year. So it'll list what college it's in, kind of academic level, and then who to contact, since the professors are the ones who are kind of collecting that roster and registration.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to follow up to Colleen's question at the beginning, just to add one other piece about students having to apply again. The application will be the same. And so in terms of the essays and everything, so those students, if they were nominated previously, they could certainly just use the exact, same thing that they did previously. And we are telling students that the fact that their program is canceled will weigh heavily. And then the other piece is that we are doing away with the recommendations for exchange programs, so that if students had applied for an exchange program and had to get recommendations previously, they don't need to get them again, because we're just eliminating that part of the application. And a follow-up to that is that we're replacing it with a different question in the application that asks them to speak to kind of their willingness and open ability to be independent and seek out resources and advocate for themselves, since our exchange programs do require that students are a little bit more independent. So we've had that extra piece of recommendations in the past, and we've determined that the recommendation really doesn't give us a picture of whether the student themselves is ready for an exchange. So that's why we're changing that particular piece.
Yeah. Are there any other questions? I think most of the folks here are academic advisors. So we do recommend maybe talking to your faculty, and if they want to start a program, talk to Dario. We have great partners who also do custom programs as well, and so they're there on the ground with the housing and all that stuff, and they're a great resource. Okay, so I guess we'll just keep going. This is just the beginning of our week. We still have many activities that are coming up for the rest of this week. As Kirsty said, it is our Africa and Middle East opportunity, so we're going to highlight those programs. We have an asynchronistic dance and cooking demonstration, so you can view that. And then Wednesday is Europe. And then Thursday is Latin America, and then Friday is our Hawks Abroad Fair. So typically we've just had a fair where everyone can go and talk to the providers, but now we've kind of reversed it, so students and you all can kind of like see the different regions, and then you're able to go to our fair in particular. And we will be doing a trivia happy hour. So last year we did a little wine and sip kind of thing, but since we're all virtual, we're going to do a little trivia happy hour. So please come on by, test your international trivia knowledge. And Kirsty put those links there in the chat. Yeah. So, yep, that's kind of our web page. We also have our cute little virtual office. So you can say hi to us on our little virtual office. You can go into our offices and say hi. Yeah. Is there anything else Kirsty and Dario want to add?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, if there are any other last minute questions, we appreciate you coming. We know that maybe some of it was a little bit of a refresher, but we're always excited to see you all. And yeah, thanks for coming.